So welcome to 5 reasons why direct mail continues to create fundraising home runs. So I want to start you off right away with actually using the questions box. So if you can type in there, what is your biggest challenge with your direct mail appeals? So just type in the answer to that question in the questions box. That would be great. And while you're doing that, just a quick recap on why I am qualified to present this webinar. I have been doing direct marketing and direct response fundraising for more than 37 years, almost 38 years now. And I wrote the book, Monthly Giving, The Sleeping Giant. I'm actually really close. I just sent it to the designer. My Monthly Giving Made Easy book. I did a lot of resources, and I absolutely love direct mail and monthly giving. I write about it, I present about it, and I train about it. So I absolutely love that. So what we're going to cover today is the 5 reasons, right? Number 1, direct mail is personal and targeted. Number 2, direct mail is cost effective. Number 3, direct mail is trackable. 4, direct mail facilitates storytelling, which we all want to do, right? And 5, direct mail is still the biggest driver of response. And we have certainly seen that during last year, during this pandemic. So the first reason direct mail is personal and targeted. The reality is that most giving is done by individuals. If we see, like in 2019, Americans gave $449 billion away, and 69% of that came from individuals. And then another 10% came from legacy gifts in their will. Only 17% came from foundations. Only 5% came from corporations. So obviously small businesses are typically most likely fall under the individual piece. But that's why, again, giving is still done by individuals, and direct mail really works with that. So I also want to start a poll, and I have a couple of these polls. What information, if you look in your organization, what information do you have for your donors now? Is it you only have the postal addresses, you only have email addresses, you have postal and email addresses, or you're not sure? So just type in the answer to the poll, like what type of information do you have? And let's see, while you're doing that, just a couple of challenges. Finding a story, direct mails to businesses, acquiring lists, getting donors to respond in a timely manner, just getting direct mail up and running, getting people to open the mail, cost and ROI, not a high response, decreasing donor response cost, okay, and high cost of postage. All right, so those are a couple of challenges that you're seeing with direct mail. All right, let me close the poll now. Okay, all right. So it looks like, you know, most of you, 86% have, you have postal and email addresses, but you do see 6% of people you only have postal addresses for, and 4% of your donors you only have email addresses, and then another 4% is not sure. So that's obviously what's important, right? You can send direct mail if you don't have postal addresses, right? So you can send email maybe, but you can't do direct mail, and vice versa. So here's why direct mail is personal, it's targeted. So you're looking at like how many mailing addresses do you have in your donor base, how many email addresses do you have in your donor base, how many phone numbers do you have in your donor base, because you still want to talk to your donors as well, especially like what we saw during the pandemic. Donors love hearing from you, believe it or not, right? Especially older donors. And then obviously you also want to start tracking like how many of your donors do you have social media information for? How many can you reach via your social media? And you see there a lot of people you actually have both, so that's fantastic. So then you can do some cross-pollination, right? You can send a mailing and you can do an email follow-up, right? But the key is like direct mail, people consider that it's expensive, but it is so powerful. So the response rate are still 600% higher than emails. So let's take another look at it. What do you know about your donors? If you're a bigger organization and you're renting mailing lists, and again, we're not going to go into a lot of detail about renting mailing lists. There's a couple of other sessions about that, but if you are renting mailing lists, you can typically do like a demographic overlay, and find out like how many of your donors are female, how many are male, what are the age ranges, and there's a lot of information that you can uncover by doing some of these overlays, or so I highly recommend that if you haven't done that already, especially if you're using model lists, you can find out a lot more information that you may not be able to see just by looking at their name. Of course, you can see a lot by looking at female and male, right? But some of the age ranges, like where they live, if they rent a house or if they own a house, so if they have pets, a lot of that information may not necessarily be sitting in your database, but you can add some more information to it. But what do you know about your donors? Well, you should know what their past giving history is. How many times have they given? When did they give? How did they give? Did they give online? Did they give through an event? Did they give through mailings, right? What was their giving amount? You know what your past response rates are. But that's where it typically ends. But you can start generating additional information. Do you know what their interests are? This is where surveys come into play. Do you know, if you're an animal welfare organization, do you know if they have pets? Do they have cats or dogs? Have they purchased tickets? If you're a museum or like a symphony, do you know if they've purchased tickets in the past? Have they signed petitions? If you're an advocacy organization, have they answered surveys, right? So all of this type of information is something that you can add to your donor base that will help you personalize your direct mail appeals even more. But past giving, past response rate, those are absolutely a given. You must know that. Now, the reality is like the bulk of your donors falls somewhere in this giving pond, right? In the old days, we used to talk about the pyramid. Now I like to talk about the giving pond, and it's a little bit more flowy, right? So as fundraisers, you have to do everything. You have to acquire new donors. You have to bond with them. This is where your thank you letter comes into play. You got to do some cultivation. Maybe you have a newsletter. So you kind of like trying to see, okay, can I get that second gift from that donor after they came on board? And then they feed into that general donor pool. And then the key is, as fundraisers, right, we always want to get more money from our existing donors. So we're trying to upgrade them to higher value donors, to major donors, and we're trying to convert them to monthly giving, right? So that's where the pledge piece comes in. And then we're trying to ultimately get the ultimate gift, the gift from their will, right? That RP piece. But what we see is donors also flow out. They stop giving. They might not have given in the last 2 years. They might not have given in the last 5 years, right? They may be at risk of lapsing. They might be streaming out of your donor pond. And this is where your win back campaigns come to in play, right? You want to always trying to bring in new donors. You want to try to reactivate your donors, your lapsed donors, and you want to try to get more money from the donors in the pool. So how do we now do that? Well, again, it depends on your goals, but there are really 4 steps, and I love this this process, if you will. It was created by the Better Fundraising Company, and it's so true with everything that we do as fundraisers, right? You have to ask the donor for money. You have to say thank you. You want to report back, and this is where that cultivation piece comes into play. The storytelling comes into play, and then you want to repeat it. So that's how you grow your fundraising. Ask, thank, report, repeat. Really, really important. And again, the more personal you can make that, the better off you are. So I recommend, and again, I know there's some people that say, well, I don't want to spend the stamp, I don't want to spend the money, but especially now, how can you get a donor to become more loyal to your organization if you're only sending a thank you email? Say they give online and you're only sending a thank you email. Well, if you can send them a thank you letter by mail, again, it's something they'll open. It's something that you're actually going to stand out compared to a lot of other organizations that are saying, well, the minute somebody gives online, I'm not going to send them any direct mail thank you letters anymore. And the reality is people will hold on to it. It's another opportunity for you to tell a story of how the donor's gift has made a difference. So you can absolutely send thank you letters in the mail, and it can be highly personal and targeted. It has their amount in it, right? You can send postcards via the mail. Again, it's something that comes into play. We'll make it like people can hold on to us. Oh, this organization makes me feel a little bit more special than just sending a thank you email, right? And again, you can make that very personal. You can send special updates based upon the type and the size of the donor. And this is where your impact report or your newsletter comes into play. And nowadays, the way laser printing is done, you can even personalize the name of the donor in that impact report with digital printing. So there's so many opportunities to make it very, very personal. So take a look at some of the things that you have and how can you make it more personal so that the donor's going to say, wow, they really, really made me feel very special, right? You can use the information based on highest gift amount, based on their prior giving, and then customize specific versions in your direct mail. And again, I'm not going to talk a lot about like direct mail production and execution, but I just want to show you a couple of ways that you can use personalization to your benefit. And again, here's an example of like a little personal note that was sent to those donors who gave $250 and up, right? You can even send it back to the organization and have them handwrite a personal note. So there's lots and lots of different ways that you can do things with laser printing right now based on what you know about the donor. You can refer to the fact that they have a dog or a cat, right? So all of the information that you have in your donor base could be used to personalize. You can personalize based upon location. If you wanted to do a very special petition for just people in Massachusetts or in New Jersey, right? So again, that's all fed by the information that is in your donor base. You can make versions based upon the level of gift. If they gave more money, again, you see it here. This was a low donor, $5 was their last gift, and that's where you start. And then you're always trying to upgrade. And the second example here, $20 was their last gift. And again, they're trying to upgrade to higher levels, right? And the name and address and the code is typically obviously on the reply form. So again, you can be really, really personal and targeted by using the information about past giving, about what you know about that donor. So in short, direct mail is personal, it's targeted, it's versatile, and it's customizable to suit your donors' needs, right? Again, all about making them feel special and asking them to make another gift, right? That's the key here. Now, the other piece is direct mail is actually really cost effective. It may sound like it's costly, and yes, the postage rates keep going up, but ultimately, again, there are certain ways that you can drive response via direct mail that you're just not going to be able to do via online only. And I'm going to show you some statistics. So let's do another poll here. What is your cost to raise $1 for your typical appeal? So when you send out a direct mail appeal, if you've sent out direct mail appeals in the past, what's the cost to raise $1 for your typical appeal? Is it less than 10 cents? Is it between 10 cents and 30 cents? Is it between 30 cents and $1, or you're not sure? And while you're doing that, let me see. Okay, all right. And I just want to let you know too, is like, I'm not sure how much time we have for questions, but please feel free. At the end of this, you will find my contact information. So please feel free to send me specific emails after, because once I leave this webinar, I will not have access to those questions. So please feel free to follow up with an email after. I'm very, very responsive on the email. Okay, so let me close the poll now. All right, so it looks like 15% says the cost to raise a dollar is between 10 cents and 30 cents. Great. 15% between 30 cents and a dollar, and 2/3 is not sure, and then 3% less than 10 cents. Awesome, great. Because that is a really, really important factor in evaluating how your direct mail appeals are doing. It's not the total cost, but it's the cost to raise a dollar. So you really want to make sure that you know the key metrics for every campaign that you do. Number mailed, number responses, gross revenue, and cost. That will then go into what's the net revenue, what's the average gift, but more importantly, what is the cost to raise a dollar. So how do you calculate that? It's as simple as cost, and that's typically like the direct mail cost. So that's the copy, creative, print, production, mailing, postage. So anything that goes into getting the direct mail appeal out the door. So it's not typically your time, but it's anything that it takes to get it out in the mail. The cost divided by the gross revenue. So say it costs you $5,000 and you're raising $25,000 with that appeal, the cost to raise a dollar is 20 cents. Okay, so that's a really important. So you might say, well, $5,000 sounds like a lot of money, but ultimately $25,000 is what was raised. So where do you get that in the stock market, right? Even though the stock market's doing really, really well, but cost to raise a dollar is 20 cents. And 20 cents is the industry average right now when it comes to existing donor appeals. Here's a chart. If you've never seen it, highly recommend, print it out, give it to your board, give it to anybody that's like, I don't know about this direct mail, because as I mentioned, industry average direct mail to donors, existing donors, cost to raise a dollar is 20 cents. Direct mail acquisition, so if you're trying to fish for new donors, that usually does cost a little bit more, but once you have them, then they feed into your donors and they're going to start raising even more money, right? So this is a really important chart to keep track of. So let's take a look at like a very simple direct mail appeal, right? That's highly personalized. This is an organization. They serve meals for people with multiple health issues, and they've been doing really, really well during COVID. So again, you can see here how personalized it is. It's like all of the amounts are personalized, the name and address is personalized, the salutation is personalized, and it's just a simple number 10 package that goes out, right? So this was a very simple direct mail appeal that you see a lot of, and you give them the chance. Now, what do you think? I'm going to do another poll. What do you think was the cost to raise a dollar for this particular appeal? Was it less than 10 cents? Was it between 10 cents and 30 cents, between 30 cents to a dollar, or you're not sure? So take a guess. What do you think was the cost to raise a dollar for this particular appeal? All right, I'm going to give, and Lee, yes, staff costs are typically not included in the cost to cost for generating an appeal, because it's really hard to calculate, right? All right, let's see. Okay, I'm going to close it. And again, of course, this is not really a fair question, right? So, okay, so 16% says less than 10 cents, 61% says between 10 and 30 cents. Okay, 10% says between 30 cents and a dollar, and the other 13% is not sure. Okay, and the answer is, I'm going to tell you, because direct mail is really, really trackable, right? So they mailed 11,140 donors, right? They had a 12% response rate. They raised $157,000. The cost was $5,389, so close to that $5,000 I just shared. The average gift was $118. And again, this went to their existing donors. And the cost to raise a dollar was minimal, right? It was tiny. It was teeny tiny. So it was like 3 cents, 3 pennies, right? So this is the power of direct mail, all right? And so and this organization mails about like every 6 weeks or so. And so they've been mailing, and they're typically doing about like 3 to 5 cents, sometimes like 10 cents to raise a dollar. So this is the power of like seeing how, wow, oh, geez, it sounds expensive, $5,389, but you raising $157,000. That's just fantastic, right? So direct mail is trackable, right? And again, so take a look at that and see how your appeals are doing. The other reason why direct mail is so powerful, and I hope that you can find and hear my excitement about direct mail, because again, I've been doing this a long time, but as we found with COVID and the pandemic, direct mail has definitely gained another role again. So it's certainly not dead. It has a longer shelf life. People are going to hold on to it, right? They're going to read it and reread it, right? So you see here, each item of charity mail is read and revisited an average of 4 times. 92% of charity mail is engaged with, right? 65% say they're likely to give mail their full attention. So it has a much longer shelf life than emails, right? It also helps you with storytelling, right? I mean, that's what we want, right? You have more space to do it, right? You can help donors understand the story that you want them to hear, right? You can use as much space as you need. So here's just one example. You can put some examples in there. So there is really no end to the creativity you can get to as far as direct mail is concerned. But as some copywriters are going to tell you, and as some like designers are going to tell you, like you want to, have that fine balance between pictures and design, and you don't want it to be too over designed either, right? It's got to feel and as personal as possible. It's got to feel a little bit like a letter that you might be writing to your mom or your grandmother, right? But you have the space to tell the story, and you can pop in some information, some other donors, and have them tell their story, why I give, right? And this particular example is actually in the organization's newsletter, right? But newsletters are also direct mail, right? So again, you have the space to do it. So direct mail is really also donor centric, right? It's all about the donor. It helps build trust in your organization. It makes them feel valued. They can read it and respond in their own time. Some donors might say, well, I'll look at it next week, right? Or I'll do it at the end of the month when I get paid, right? It all depends. And they can control what they receive and see, like and look at it when they feel like it. It's really all about convenience for them, right? So it's not like they have to buzz through their email inbox, right? So direct mail, there's definitely a great role for them. But ultimately, direct mail is the biggest driver of response. And again, it kind of looks at like, what can you do? What can you ask the donor to do when it comes to direct mail? And again, you can drive them to the website, big factor, right? But you can ask them for a donation and they'll send it in. So there's lots and lots of things that you can do with direct mail. You really ask the donor to take action. It's all about a call to action, right? And it doesn't matter, where they are and at what time of day. So let's look at the same organization that I shared earlier, right? So what if you only did email? Now, again, they have very close to like pretty much all the mailing addresses. They also have email addresses for. They emailed 11,140 people. They had an open rate of 20.39%, which is about industry average right now, right? So they had 2,271 opens. Almost 13% of people clicked the links in the email. They had 295 gifts, $118 average gift, very similar to what they were seeing in the direct mail, and it only generated $34,810. So that's what would have happened if you only sent an email. Now, let's remember what the direct mail results were, right? 11,140 people. They had 12% response rate. So those are actually people sending in a donation. $118 average gift cost to raise $1.03, right? So again, these are just a couple of things to evaluate. What if you looked at those email addresses? Of course, if you only have an email address, that's what you will do, right? And again, we don't have time to go into it, but there are ways that you can get mailing addresses for your email addresses as well, so that you can send them something in just to get the complete information. That's the power of direct mail. Well, is it less than 5%, 15%, more than 15%, or you're not sure? Look at, right. So Logan says, we typically do 2 cents a year. Are we leaving money on the table? Pretty much, I can guarantee you, yes, probably. We typically do send in May and November. Our cost to raise $1 with our direct mails around 3 to 4 cents per dollar. So that's great. Yes, you are most likely leaving money on the table. So I recommend add one and see what happens, right? And Sarah says, should you include a return envelope with a stamp on it? You typically do not need a return envelope with a stamp. You just need a return envelope. Ask the donor to pay for the stamp. And if they don't have a stamp handy, they will most likely go online. All right, let me see here. And I know I'm rushing through this. I have a lot of great stuff here, but let's see here. Great, I'm going to close it. Okay, so 26% of you say it's between 5 and 15%. 7% says more than 15%, and 53% is not sure. So definitely recommend go back after this webinar and say, what are my results for my appeals? Because that's where it starts. You always want to create your own benchmarks, just like Logan just said, right? So what is your typical direct mail response rate? Take a look at that. And you may actually be really, really pleasantly surprised, right? So start there. What is your benchmark, right? And here's the reality. Donors are 3 times more likely to give online in response to a direct mail appeal than an email. So really, really interesting. This is the latest statistics from the pandemic year, right? So overall, almost 13% of total fundraising last year came in from online gifts. So what does that mean? That means that 87% of giving still comes offline, namely through the mail or walk-ins, right? So it has gone up, absolutely has gone up. And you see too, like what types of organizations are seeing the biggest growth. 18, almost 19% of online gifts for smaller organizations that are generating less than $1 million, right? And then 9.4% from bigger organizations that raise $10 million or more. So it absolutely is growing, but it's not growing as much as you might think it does. And again, a lot of this online giving has actually been generated by the mailings as well. So it's a mix of online and offline. But 87% 7% of money comes in offline. Now, you may ask, like, well, how is this with like the level of donors and the age of donors, right? I'm a baby boomer, and baby boomers represent 43% of total giving. 40% of those gave in response to a direct mail solicitation at least once. The matures, those are 68 and over, they are 26% of total giving right now, but a lot of those people are most comfortable giving by mail, 52%. Now, how about those Generation Ys and X's? They starting to grow up, right? They're starting to represent a big portion of total giving, 11%, 20%, and they are starting to generate, and give by mail as well. Now, why did I ask you earlier to look at your emails and your mailings? Because those donors that are giving both ways, they're even more powerful, right? So donors who give both online and offline, they're worth 234% more than online only donors, and 210% more than offline only donors. So this is why you want to send direct mail and you want to send emails to the donors. This is why you want to try to get that email address for your donors, because then you can complement the mailing. You can send announcements, you can send follow-ups, right? So that way it becomes even more powerful. So direct mail and online go hand in hand, right? So it's all about multi-channel or all online, omni-channel, however they're calling that right now. But again, donors are everywhere, right? Donors might be sitting on their phone somewhere, and you send them an email. You might send them a text. You sending it, and then they come home and they find the mailing piece that you just sent them, right? So you got to really look at all of those pieces. So in short, there are 5 reasons why direct mail still scores so many home runs. It's personal and targeted. You can do a lot. Direct mail is cost effective. Even though some of the postage rates might be going up, there's still no other better way to reach those donors. It's trackable. It facilitates storytelling, and it's still the biggest driver of response. Ultimately, you can't stop fishing where the fish are, right? If nearly 70% of your donors demonstrate a preference for direct mail, you want that in your mix. And this is Steve McLaughlin from Blackbaud, and they do an amazing study every year on the impact of online and offline and multi-channel. So again, that's what it is, right? You got to keep fishing where the fish are, where the donors are. They get your mail, they do get your email, but together, it's so tremendously powerful. So that's it for me. As I mentioned, feel free to send me an email if you have specific questions about this and about anything to do with direct mail. And I see that I went way over my time. But again, there's got some great questions there. And I knew there's a survey after this. Feel free to answer the survey, and we really appreciate this. And like as I mentioned, good luck on your direct mail. And reach out to me if you have any questions, and lots of great other direct mail sessions that you can check out as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Erica. And thanks everyone for joining us today. I just want to mention that I posted a link into the questions box to a place where you can submit a short video testimonial. If you decide to do that and share with us your learning experience with Charity How To, we will give you a premium webinar completely for free. You let us know the name of the webinar and the date you would like to attend, and we will register you for free just for submitting that video testimonial. So I'm going to post the link into the questions box right now again. So it's videos.charityhowto.com. And there you go. Click on it, save it, bookmark it, and get back to it whenever you want to take advantage of that opportunity. Thanks again, everyone. Please stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you soon again on another Charity How To webinar. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.